The Bears look like a completely different team from last year. That's what happens when you fire your general manager and head coach. But there is one big constant in Chicago: Justin Fields. The Bears traded up at the 2021 draft to select Fields at 11. He started his rookie year as the backup to Andy Dalton, but he was still used in certain situations in week 1. Fields even scored a rushing touchdown. In week 3, Dalton went down with a knee injury, and just like that, Fields was the starter. His first start, well, it went bad. It went really bad. He got sacked 9 times, 4.5 were by Myles Garrett, and Chicago only had 47 yards of offense. Fields did, however, get his first win the next week against the Lions. He certainly had his growing pains as a rookie. He turned the ball over 5 times against the Bucs in week 7. In week 11, he cracked multiple ribs that caused him to miss some time. On the year, Fields threw for 1,870 yards and 7 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Rushing, he had 420 yards and 2 touchdowns. Fields also managed to fumble the ball 12 times. Not great. The Bears didn't play Justin Fields much in their first 2 preseason games this season. Chicago played Kansas City in week 1, and Fields only threw 7 passes. 4 of them were completed for 48 yards, and he had a 10-yard run. Week 2 against the Seahawks, again, Fields didn't play much. He only threw 7 passes, 5 were completed for 39 yards. Now, usually, the preseason doesn't matter much for second-year guys, at least compared to rookies, but it does to Fields. See, he struggled last year, so to see him light it up in the preseason would be very inspiring, and that's exactly what he did in week 3 against the Browns. I know, it is just the preseason, but that kind of performance can really build some confidence before going into the regular season. If you're looking for one big reason why Fields may look like a completely different player this season, it's that the Bears look like a completely different organization. General manager Ryan Pace was fired after 6 years and was replaced by Ryan Poles, who was the executive director of player personnel for the Chiefs and had been with the team since 2009. More importantly, the Bears fired Matt Nagy. Nagy was the head coach in Chicago for 4 years, was a 500-ish coach, and never won a playoff game. Though I do have to point out that he won Coach of the Year in 2018. Regardless, he wasn't the right guy. That's why Chicago fired him and hired Matt Eberflus. Eberflus played linebacker at Toledo way back when, and actually, his head coach for one of those seasons was some guy named Nick Saban. Eberflus was a walk-on that managed to rack in 325 tackles in his collegiate career, and once it was over, he became a student assistant coach. He slowly moved up at Toledo until he was hired to be the defensive coordinator at Missouri. Eberflus jumped to the pros in 2009, and he served as both the Browns and Cowboys linebackers coach before he became the Colts defensive coordinator in 2018. With Matt Eberflus being a defensive-minded coach, that makes the offensive coordinator so much more important for Justin Fields' development, and that is Luke Getsy. Getsy played quarterback at Pitt for 2 years before he played at Akron for 2 years and broke 24 school records. He ended up signing with the 49ers as an undrafted free agent in 2007, but that was it for him in the pros. He went back to Akron as a graduate assistant, and he bounced around to a handful of colleges before he finally got his first job in the pros in 2014 with the Packers. He started off as their offensive quality control coach, but he later became the wide receivers coach. Getsy was the offensive coordinator at Mississippi State in 2018, and then he returned back to Green Bay as their quarterbacks coach. Getsy has spent years with Aaron Rodgers, and now he gets to be the head man trying to develop Justin Fields. But perhaps even more than the coaches, the players around Fields may make or break his career. Allen Robinson has been by far the most talented wide receiver in Chicago for the past 4 years, but now he's gone, and that makes Darnell Mooney the new number 1. Now, Mooney was taken in the 5th round in 2020, and he ended up playing pretty well as a rookie. He set a Chicago franchise rookie record with 61 receptions. Mooney ended up recording 631 yards and 4 touchdowns on the year. In 2021, he broke out with over 1,000 yards and scored 4 touchdowns again. With the departure of Robinson and an undeniably weak wide receiver core, the Bears had to go out and make moves for the position this offseason, including at the draft, selecting Velus Jones. Jones was a 3-star coming out of high school and went to USC. He ended up redshirting his true freshman year, and then the following season, he was the Trojans' primary kick returner, something that he really did flourish in his entire time in college. Even his sophomore year at USC, he still didn't do much on offense. Jones had just 266 yards and a single touchdown. That touchdown ended up being his only receiving score at USC. In 2019, he was a fantastic returner for the Trojans. He was named second team All Pac-12 for special teams, but he didn't get time on offense, so he opted to transfer to Tennessee. He continued to return kicks, but he also found an increased role in the passing game. That 2020 COVID season, Jones had 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. He decided to use his COVID year for 2021. Yes, that would make it his 6th year in college. Remember, Velus Jones is a 25-year-old rookie. That last season proved to be his best by far. He was great on special teams, was the SEC Co-Special Teams Player of the Year, but he also excelled in the passing game for the first time. Jones had over 800 yards and 7 touchdowns. The Bears didn't stop there adding wideouts though. A bit of an underrated signing was Byron Pringle. Pringle went undrafted in 2018 before he got hurt in the Chiefs' final preseason game and landed on injured reserve. In 2019, Pringle made the active roster and had 170 yards and a touchdown, plus he did win a ring that year. In 2020, he put up almost the exact same stats, 160 yards and a touchdown. Finally, Pringle had a big role last season and recorded over 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. The wide receiver room has its problems, but there are plenty of problems to go around in Chicago. Oh man, the Bears' offensive line is a dumpster fire. I mean, there were times last year where they looked like they could not block anyone. On paper, the Bears' line probably got worse, but not so fast. See, the most interesting guy on that unit is Tevin Jenkins. In the second round in 2021, the Bears drafted Jenkins, and he sucked so bad. He ended up undergoing back surgery before the season and landed on injured reserve. Finally, he got activated, and we got to see him on the field, finally, offensively in Week 14 after Jason Peters got hurt. Well, Jenkins was ass. He played 160 snaps and allowed 11 pressures and got flagged 7 times. This offseason has been one hell of a ride if you followed Tevin Jenkins' story. He stopped getting reps at tackle and was constantly thrown around in trade rumors before the Bears tried him out at guard, and now he's without a doubt the starter. It makes no sense, but now he has a clear role and he hasn't looked bad. Larry Borum is an interesting tackle. He was a 2021 5th round pick and looks like the Bears may have hit in the 5th round this year with Braxton Jones. From what I've seen, he's impressed, and he's probably going to be the starting left tackle opposite Borum. Moral of the story, Chicago's line isn't going to be as bad as we thought. Hopefully, that can make life at least a little easier for Justin Fields and David Montgomery. Montgomery was a 3rd rounder in 2019, and he carved out a role as a rookie in Chicago, rushing for about 900 yards and 6 touchdowns. The following season, he surpassed 1,000 yards for the first time. He added 8 touchdowns, and receiving, Montgomery had over 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. Last year, Montgomery missed 4 games because of a knee injury, but it didn't stop him from putting together a good campaign. 849 yards and 7 touchdowns, plus 300 yards in the pass game. The Bears have put pieces around Justin Fields. The question is whether or not it's enough.